One of the most talked about new musicals is The Band's Visit, which is based on the 2007 film. It features music and lyrics by David Yazbek, a book by Itamar Moses, and is directed by David Cromer. It came to Broadway this past fall following a critically acclaimed, sold-out run off-Broadway at the Atlantic Theater. It has already won 4 Best Musical Awards and is on every major Best of the Year list, and it features a stellar cast. In The Band's Visit, after a mix-up at the border, an Egyptian police band is sent to a remote village in the middle of the Israel desert. With no bus until morning and no hotel in sight, these unlikely travelers are taken in by the locals under the spell of the desert sky. Their lives become intertwined in the most unexpected ways. The Band's Visit celebrates the deeply human ways music, longing, and laughter can connect us all. And we have the cast and creators here today. So please welcome, yes, put your hands together, composer, lyricist David Yazbek, book writer Itamar Moses, director David Cromer, and the cast, Katrina Lenk, Don Cariani, Sharon Seid, and Jonathan Ravid, the company of The Band's Visit. This is a big group today. Look at this, right?
How many are SAG members? All right, good.
That's great. I love that.
Good for us.
Well, I have to tell you all as we get started, this musical is perfection in every way, from the creation, the direction, and the cast.
Thank you very much.
That did deserve its own card.
Yes, thank you very much. That deserves its own card.
What did you find most perfect about it?
Totally. My first question is for David Yazbek and Itamar Moses. How did you come about writing this beautiful and heartfelt musical?
So, the musical is based on an Israeli film.
The musical is based
of the same,
on an Israeli film.
As a, yeah. I was gonna make a joke about lyrics. It's based on a film from about 10 years ago. Oren Wolf, who is our lead producer, saw the movie in a film festival on the Upper West Side that happens every year called the Other Israel Film Festival, which focuses on films that show aspects of Israeli society or life in the Middle East that aren't normally the focal point. So he saw the film of The Band Visit there and was struck by this vision that it belonged on stage. So that began a long process for him of, first of all, acquiring the rights, which Eran Kohler, the filmmaker, was reluctant to give him.
Because he said...
Oh, because, well, he didn't really know anything about musicals, and he said, I'll try to do my Iran impression. He said, the only musical I know is Cats, so I think he's going to dress them as cats. It don't make sense. So he had to ask Iran several times, and then first he thought it might be a play with music, and only after a couple of years of sort of thinking about it and development, he hired Yazbek and myself to do the adaptation. So that was how we got involved, as we were sort of approached individually. We didn't know each other at the time, and said, hey, look at, we were each of us was told, hey, look at this movie and think if it's something you might see yourself being able to adapt.
So David, did you start writing the score first?
No, in fact, quite the opposite. We did.
He still hasn't started.
We did. We did a. I don't know if you noticed. There's 18 numbers in the show. So, we did a reading of an adaptation of Itamar's first sort of go around with the cast, with one song, and it really worked. So maybe I shouldn't have done any more songs.
Not with this cast. Did you say with the?
I think one or two. Anybody? Yeah, you were.
No, it was Bill and George. Bill Army and Georgia Boot, I believe.
We're in the first reading.
And Tony Shalhoub.
And Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah, but that was a long, long time ago, and a lot of water under the bridge.
Got it.
When Itamar and I had both seen the movie, and we both had a conversation, and we both realized that we were excited about the tone of the movie, not just about the stories and the characters, but about the tone of it. It was unlike any movie that I had seen, probably, and we wanted to make a musical that honored that tone. Not the exact same tone, but we wanted to do something different. Oh, that's the title of one of the songs.
See how that
we
works?
wanted to do something that we hadn't seen before, on
There's
stage.
also a lyric in this.
It's also a title of a song. Yeah. So- oh, right. Never seen before. Jesus, we could go down
talking
this rabbit
lyrics.
hole.
This
So
is
that
how
was it.
rehearsals went, by the way. This is all.
They were a really close company, as you can tell. For David Cromer, how did you come about to direct it, and why did you want to direct it?
It's about 2 years ago, July, I believe. You guys did a workshop of a version of it. There was another director attached for a long time, and he left. And I have one. Does anyone need a water?
Pass down.
During my answer, pass them down.
Jonathan, you got one?
I'm good, thank you, Yazbek. Thanks.
Would you like a water? I had worked with Itamar, and I had worked with the Atlantic Theater Company. I had met David Yazbek, and I didn't know Oren Wolf, the lead producer, at all. But I knew a few people. The original director left the project, and I think maybe Itamar mentioned it, or somebody mentioned, oh, I'm sure there was a list, and by the time they got to me, they were, you know. So I just got a call. Itamar asked me if I'd seen the movie. I said no. He told me about, he told me that I'll never be able to repeat it correctly. He told me the setup. He told me the plot of it in one sort of simple sentence. It was incredibly evocative, that was incredibly spare, and that was just, it was open-ended and was really engaging. So I was automatically enchanted by the idea of how he described it, which felt like something that was not going to be overt, overly explained, overly stated, overly hammering on the head. And then everything after that turned out to be the case. The film, the music that I heard. And so I came in, and then and luckily I think that I joined these guys on what the tone was, and then my job became to kind of figure out how to transform the tone of the film. Not copy the tone of the film, but transform the tone of the, embrace the things and let it grow into something else.
We had spent so much time working on tonal issues for so long. And then Dave comes in and basically does, the same amount of work in an eighth of the time, and it all really came together when David Cromer came on.
Yeah, it isn't actually true that there was some enormously long list of directors that because when we started to ask ourselves, well, okay, it's this musical, but it's a very spare, very quiet musical. It requires like a very rigorous but naturalistic touch. There's a lot of scene work that needs to be done. That and then you start to think yourself who, and even though he's not primarily known for musicals, he's done them. The Adding Machine musical that was off Broadway and was so wonderful. So that's not a huge list of like the directors who have that skill set. So when his name came up, we immediately was sort of our antennas went off and we were like, maybe. So yeah, it really turned out to be a great fit.
Yeah. For the actors, what attracted all of you originally to the project when you first heard about it, and why you wanted to be a part of this?
For me, it was easy. My parents are both Israeli. I knew the film. It's very popular in Israel. And I think Sharon and I both, coming from a Middle Eastern background, we don't get many opportunities to play Middle Eastern characters. So that was amazing. And just being able to speak our mother tongue on stage was really, really exciting.
Yeah, I remember I found out about that it was going to be done at the Atlantic, and I told my parents, oh my God, they're going to do The Band's Visit as a musical. And if you've seen the film, you see that it's a very quiet, realistic movie. And my mom was like, what? They're going to turn this movie into a musical? How it's going to work? It's going to be so boring. She was like, I don't get it, because she thinks like Broadway musical. It's going to be like flashy. And, I was like, I don't know, Ima, but I really want to be in it, So when I got my first audition, I was like, I have to sing a song in Hebrew so that they know that I'm Israeli and they know I can speak Hebrew. So I was very, very excited even before the first audition.
I was excited because The Full Monty's one of my favorite musicals, and David Yazbek.
Oh, no. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
I'm not kidding. And
Does anybody need a water or anything?
no, I'm serious. And Bach at Leipzig is one of my favorite plays I've ever seen in New York, and Itamar wrote that. And I saw David Cromer's Our Town, and I loved that. And then when I found out I was going to get to audition for something that they were working on together, I said yeah, and that's why I auditioned, and I'm very happy I got to be a part of it.
John also said something really funny to me when we were in rehearsals at the Atlantic. He was like, you know, I always do these big Broadway shows, and that's what people think of me, but I've always wanted to be one of the cool kids doing the like interesting artsy work downtown, and you guys finally gave me that, and then there you are, back uptown. You know, carry on, curse.
It does feel like a cool kid thing, though. It's pretty cool.
Oh, I don't really have anything exciting to say after that. I didn't know any of these guys, and I just went to an audition. That's how that happened.
That could happen to you too, SAG members.
So what did you all do at your audition? Like those final calls?
I sat there. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I also did a Hebrew song because, I mean, you got to show off the goods. So I did that, and then we had sides for the character. My character is Sami, so I had that, and yeah, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I actually, from the first time I auditioned to the end, I wound up going in for I think 3 different roles when it was all said and done, because I think they were just like, we like you, we just don't know where to put you. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
So well,
No, she can't. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, it was actually really cool. I got to read sides for a bunch of different characters. I sang a bunch of different songs. I sang a song in Hebrew. I sang a Alanis Morissette song once. Then I sang a Etta James 50s, 60s song.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of my last audition, Cromer was like, oh, by the way, do you roller skate? And I was like, yeah. And I thought, I won't have to really roller skate. I'll just have to stand in roller skates during the roller skating scene and it'll be fine. And then during rehearsal, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? I was like, whoa.
Saying yes,
But
yeah.
they brought someone to help us learn, and now it's actually really fun. Yeah.
Is this the question about the audition?
Yes.
I think I played the clarinet for you.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
And then I sang the song, the lullaby, and did the scene, and that's what I remember. It's hard to audition for people you think a lot of. Do you know what I mean? It's really scary because you don't want to be awful for them because you like them
hit
so
it
much.
well.
No, I always have to follow the cool stories. I went to the audition, and then I went to a callback, and then there was a third callback, and I said, what more can you want from me? I showed you everything I have.
I think
have
we were
something
so.
to say about that. Could I say something about the auditions? Just because there's specific stories to all of them, and that might be of interest to the
totally,
actors.
yeah.
You said something, Katrina, interesting the other day. I remember we were talking about something, and you just said I went in because it was a job, which is just so much more true than you know what I mean, or as true or as realistic as I wanted it since I was a kid. This is my part, or I was moved by. Mostly it's like. Okay, job, I'll go over there. You're just hired, and you have to fall in love with it somehow. Katrina, I remember the reason you had to come back so many times, we had no idea who we were going to cast in the part. The reason you had to come back so many times was because, first of all, producers had to see her, but also we started to think it was too good to be true. And I know that sounds like a really cute, sweet story, but we started to go there's going to be something wrong. She's going to turn out to be crazy, or she's going to, you know what I mean? She's going to turn out to be mean, or something it's not, you know what I mean? She won't show up. She'll just turn out to be this person. Because why she's available to us? Why somebody this good is available to us?
We started discussing things like, let's put bologna on her seat to see how she deals with that. Let's be especially nasty, see how she deals with that.
So that was that. John came. There was this period where we sort of thought everyone might be playing instruments, so we stupidly asked people to bring in instruments, and they did. That was never going to happen. And so John played the clarinet. But we read you for every Israeli part. I think we read you for it's extensively for Itzik.
We read you for Golda Meir. That's how extensive.
Right. Yeah. And Sharon, I just remember you you sang once, and we were just like, well, she's in the show, we just don't know where, you know. And Jonathan and I actually knew each other from Chicago, so I was always like, why would he be good as that? You know what I mean? So they're all utterly different. Did you guys want to say something about
Oh, just the
audition?
thing, it's very true with Katrina, like, because that's a very specific part, Dina. And you need to have a lot of qualities. And it's one of those parts where you start an audition process and you're like, we may not find this person. We might not find this person right away. We might not find them. We might have to start searching internationally. Like, where is this person going to be? And then when someone walks in and just nails it, it did feel, we sort of didn't believe it at first. We were like, there's got, you know, and also we were just sort of like, how is this person not already hugely famous? We had all of the, we all had all those conversations. So so it took us a while to sort of realize, no, it really is, we really did get this lucky. So I think Katrina's audition story is a much more powerful and emotional story for us than it is for her.
I gotta say, like, it's not that I was like, oh, I don't care, I'll just go. Like, I think I'd had a series of really terrible auditions before that and was just like, okay. This is going to be bad too. So I think I had gotten to a place in my head of like, don't get attached, because if you love every project so much before you get to do it, it's like devastating when you don't get to go and work on it. So I think I'd gotten in this place where like, I'm just going to go and audition and be like, whatever at the end of it. And so that's that thing, like, you know, the less you care when you go in, somehow the better you do. Sometimes in the auditions, it was definitely one of those times where I was like, I'm just not gonna cry when this one's over.
The one other anecdote is I did call around a little bit because I wanted to ask people, like I asked a few people I knew, did they know you? And this might be upsetting to hear. People said no. People said, oh, I love her. We almost cast her in Thing X. We almost cast, she almost had, we loved her for blah, 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 blah. But for a couple of things, they picked someone else, and then that made you available to us. You know?
Worked out okay.
Yeah.
There are so many wonderful messages in this show. What personally moves each of you about this show? We can start with the actors. Take your time.
Not that much time.
Well, here, okay, I'll start. I think, okay, well, in the world we live in today, I think it's such a beautiful story that when people are in need, people help. So for me, I think that's my biggest thing about this show.
Yeah, and similarly, I think it's about, for me, it's so beautiful to see yourself in somebody who you think is different than you and realize that perhaps they're really not. And, you know, however you connect with them through music, in our show, it's usually through music, but I don't know, just seeing somebody that either you're told is different than you or thinks different than you, or you just assume is different than you, and then realizing you're so similar in so many ways is very, very touching to me, because I've had lots of experiences where that's happened successfully in my life and unsuccessfully. So I love that our show does that.
I like the way pain dribbles out of all of the people. And I was watching I like to watch the roller rink scene because I love it so much. It's basically the young love story in the play. And when Khaled, who played by Ari Stachel, reveals that he has an arranged marriage last night, somebody in the front row went, oh no. And I just, like, it's so cool to hear stuff like that, because you think he's so cool and so fine, and then you find out he's a mess too. And I really like that part of it, the play in general. And nobody leads with the tragedy. Like, that's, like, everybody's trying to be cool and happy, and then it just kind of flies out that there's, like, mini tragedy.
No, I like the little, it talks about hope in a small way, in an accessible way, as opposed to like the grand hope of like that we all felt when Obama was president. And now that there's maybe not as much grand hope out there, it's really nice to be like, oh, there is still hope, and it may be like small amounts of hope can still have an effect on you and can still push you forward, and in like seeming mediocre ways, but those little mediocre ways add up to maybe something bigger down the line, and I like that about the show a lot.
I would just piggyback on what Katrina said. It's that the tiny incremental steps forward that can be taken in life. That's mostly what movement forward is. Little tiny victories, even when it seems like we're in stagnation. I find that very moving because it's more recognizable, because those things, those very small ones, when something goes a little better, are seismic. And I guess the only other thing I've arrived at about the show is that I have at various times in my life thought, well, this is it. It's not going to get any more interesting than this. This is sort of it. I'm done with certain things in my life, and certain things aren't going to happen anymore. And I'm constantly surprised because life keeps coming, and it often keeps coming in very positive ways, and it can. So it was actual hope, actual hard-earned hope, I find very moving. Things couldn't get a little better.
Yes, I agree with all of that. I think the show gets at something about the way that everyone is sort of the main character of their own story, and to them, like, it's epic, it's huge. The stakes are literally life and death, and there's something about the show that reminds me of the way in which that's true for everybody, and that feels like a big emotional idea. But there's also sort of a meta lesson that moves me about our experience on it as artists, that like it's and you get these examples every now and then in your career, like they're a little bit few and far between, but it's been also a really good reminder of like the we like intellectually we know that it's true that if you work on something like with integrity and let it, not worry about pleasing the widest possible audience and worry in sort of a like a fretful, anxious way about like, will people like this, will people like that? You just try to make the thing true to itself and then like leave everything else up to the fates. We all know that's what we're supposed to do, but it's really hard. You're always sort of running a gauntlet of your own doubts and fears and notes that are coming at you from the outside. And so this has been by far the and maybe the strongest I'll ever get, like affirmation of approaching something that way. Because when we were working on this show before it was off Broadway and when we were doing it downtown, I don't think any of us ever anticipated quite the sort of journey that it ended up having. So like it's a very like in your face, for me it's like a very in your face reminder of that lesson.
Yeah, our music supervisor, who's an old friend of mine, Dean, said at some point while we were at the Atlantic, he said, you should remember this experience because it'll never get this good. And I think he's right, actually. For me, the most moving, I mean, it changes all the time, but there's something about the way that there's this burgeoning, this sense of like when you drop a pebble in a pond and it just, the rings keep expanding out. There's just this sense that on the stage, there are characters connecting. There's a very, like a really honest, non-manipulative brand of acting going on that you don't see in musicals, and I love seeing that. I just love it. It's the cast, it's David Cromer, honoring what I think we put into the script. But then it keeps expanding, and you see these musicians. Much of what they're playing is not pre-written. I mean, the songs are written, but sometimes they're improvising off of each other, and you're seeing this connection that is absolutely authentic and real because it's really happening. It's not written lines or notes, and then it just keeps expanding out. And then you have this audience who by the end is crying and laughing, and they don't know why. And I think the reason why is that they're actually feeling the connection that we're talking about. It stops being a metaphor and it actually starts happening. And the thing that gets me is when the idea that they're leaving the theater and that maybe that those concentric rings will keep expanding once they leave the theater.
This is one of my final questions. If you could each sum up the best part of the experience of being a part of the band's visit, or the incredible fan base. They have this incredible fan base. It all started down at the Atlantic Theater, because I remember when we first found out this show was being at the Atlantic, it sold out in like 2 days. You couldn't steal a ticket at the Atlantic, and everybody wanted to get into this incredible, beautiful musical down there. But there are fans that saw the show down there, and you have a beautiful fan base on Broadway, and just the way your musical touches an audience. If you could just sum up the best part of the experience, whatever that is, what is it for each of you?
I'll start, if that's cool. I think the best part has been, like you said, with the fan base, hearing from people on social media that are like either actors or just younger folks that are Middle Eastern that have messaged me and said like, I feel like I've never seen myself on stage, and I feel like I'm seeing myself, someone who looks like me, someone who has crazy curly hair like me and has a huge nose like me and he has the same skin color as me and is speaking Arabic or Hebrew, and they just feel like so represented. And I think if I was like in high school and saw this show, my mind would have been blown. So I feel so grateful to be representing them, and so grateful that they are represented.
I would just say that as we encountered challenges and problems, everybody, it was very easy for everybody to help solve them. That you didn't see a problem and you had to convince anyone it was a problem. When we would identify things we couldn't make work, it was sort of all hands on deck, and in a very productive way, so that I don't know who solved what problem and I don't care. They just got solved, or some of them did, or the ones that didn't get solved, luckily, nobody's mad about.
I mean, for me, in addition to the things that I've said already about the lesson about how a good collaboration works and being focused on the right things, what it can lead to. I mean, it's my Broadway debut, and I'm 40 on the nose. I turned 40 in August, and there's a thing that happens. This is a slight tangent, but my first TV job, I worked for Ray Romano. I wrote on a show called Men of a Certain Age, which is a show he did on TNT, and he was the showrunner, and so I was in the writer's room with him every day, and he's very famous, enormously rich, and really nice, and really nice, neurotic, but like very nice guy, wonderful to work for, and I remember thinking, like, I think that has something to do with the fact that Everybody Loves Raymond didn't happen until he was like 39. Like, it didn't start. Like, and it meant he glimpsed. You have to, at a certain point, you have to say, like, as you said earlier, in a different context, like, well, maybe this is it. This is what I'll do. Certain things won't happen for me. And then it happened in this incredibly unexpected way. I mean, Band's Visit was my third musical in a row, and it struck me as the least likely to move to Broadway. And by then the other two hadn't moved, so I really wasn't expecting it. So that, just personally, I'm still processing what the lessons are of all of this, but I know there's a lot of them.
This is also my Broadway debut, so thank you for that. Thank you. And I mean, it's hard because I'm a little spoiled now. Yeah, I think piggybacking on what Sharon was saying, my favorite part is introducing this part of the world to an audience, to a Western audience, an American audience that might not know these instruments, know this music, and understand that, again, these are people living their lives and struggling like everyone else. I mean, this show could take place in a little town in Montana. It can be anywhere. So I think that's my biggest takeaway.
This is a really hard question.
Really hard.
I'm sitting here thinking, and I think there's not one thing about this show that I'm not in love with and proud of. Like, I'm just in love with the story. I'm in love with the place the story came from. I'm so proud of everyone that's developed the show and is working on the show. I'm so proud that we have Middle Eastern representation in the show, and I'm so proud and happy that people are responding to it the way that they are, and that we get to sing this beautiful music. And it's just like, this doesn't happen very often, that you can feel so inspired and in love with the project that you're in every place you look. And so that's just a once in a lifetime thing, I think.
I think for me it was when we were down at the Atlantic, we couldn't see or hear the show really. So I had no idea what I was in. Because
We
once
just threw it together, right?
well,
No, we did. We had to just blast it onto the stage, and you guys were stuck backstage.
and we just didn't know, and there was only one place from which we could enter. It was the back. So we always had to come in from the back. We never saw anything, and just watching these guys work and bring it to life and feeling it change, and I don't know, it was like a leap of faith kind of, right? Because it was so scary at first, and then slowly realizing that it was something very beautiful. I've never experienced that. I mean, I usually you know what you're getting yourself into, and I had no idea what we were, and just watching them build it was, it felt like just a slow, like a flame that started really, really small, starting to burn, and it was just a really, that sounds so lame, but it was just, it was faith. I learned about faith is like, just have faith and go do it and contribute your part, and it will become beautiful, and it did. And we could feel it because of the way people responded. It was very different every night as it grew. And now we're at a place where people come back and cry in my dressing room. Like, they'll come sit in my dressing room and cry. And you're like, my friend from my hometown came in, and she sat in my dressing room and she said, I can't talk to you, I have to cry. I was like, great. So we just sat there, and she cried for a while, and it's very interesting. a lot of people have that experience. Yeah. And they just say, I don't know why I'm crying, I'm just going to cry. And you're like, it's okay, just go ahead.
So I get to work with people like the guy you just heard talking, you know? I mean, to me, it's like moments, life, you know, there's just the present moment. That's what you get. That's what you get. That's what you're getting now. Being up on the stage with these people reminds me about how every moment was valuable in the making of it, in the collaboration. So, you know, working with these two guys and just hanging with these two guys, having meals and stuff, and with Oren Wolf, the producer, you know, like the four of us, that's, you know, that could be a very entertaining 3-hour meal for us. You know, maybe not for anybody else, you know. The thing that sticks out, and, you know, just when I do see the show, just the realization in the moment that it's true, that it still feels true, that the moments within the show feel true. I don't recall that being the case in any musical I've worked on. I've been entertained, and there are occasional moments, but this is really something special. And then there's like this, what sums it all up for me is listening to Katrina sing a song that I wrote that almost wasn't in the show. And the first time I heard her sing it, and now the, you know, 200th time, however many times it is, the Omar Sharif song, and still getting chills because she approached, well, aside from just her talent, you know, I mean, she's created this. This is an original part that she's created in a musical. And when I hear that song, which I was very proud of immediately, just exponentially improved, you know, by her performance, it's, you know, it's kind of encapsulates my entire experience with the show. You know, just how fortunate I am to have been in part of this.
I have to tell you, I've been doing this for 27 years, interviewing everybody in the theater, and I have to tell you, this is one of the best afternoons I have spent. You are all the best at what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, the company of The Band's Visit, thank you very much for being here today.